Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 2 o'clock. Welcome to Cabinet on Tuesday, the 24th of March. As usual, this meeting is broadcast live via the County Council's website. It will be archived so you can view it afterwards. Can I just note that due to the current situation, 3 members of the Cabinet are present. That's myself, the Deputy Leader, Blake, and Lee Brecken, who lives the closest to County, also can come in. This is to meet present legal obligations because at the moment we actually physically have to vote, and 3 is the minimum that are required to be quorate. The remaining members of the Cabinet, along with some officers, are present who will be presenting today, will be joining online. And for clarity, only us 3 members who are here at the moment are allowed to vote. For those of you in the room, as usual, please remember to switch your microphone on before you speak and turn it off after you finish speaking. So I'll move straight on to the agenda, which is apologies for absence, and we have one from Trevor Pendleton. Second agenda item is the minutes. These are on pages 5 to 14. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February 2020 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed by us 3? Thank you. Urgent items. I've agreed to accept 2 urgent items, a report on the South West Leicestershire Growth Area Housing Infrastructure Fund, so-called HIF, and one on the impact of coronavirus and the response of the County Council. These will be taken under agenda item 17 on the agenda. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest in respect of items on the agenda? For those of you who are Skyping into the meeting today, please declare your interest as you begin speaking on an item. So you've no need to declare it now, but if you speak on anything where you've got a potential declaration of interest, do it if you're called to speak. Any from the... Yes, Blake?
Leader, just the usual interest on item 6. It's to do with the Highways Capital Programme and the transportation work. It's just a personal interest, non-pecuniary, and I'll declare that as such.
Thank you. That's the only one. So the first agenda item is a report of the Scrutiny Review Panel on Multi-Academy Trusts. This is on pages 15 to 26. This report presents the findings of the Scrutiny Review Panel's investigation into the structural and operational arrangements of the Multi-Academy Trusts in Leicestershire. Kevin Feltham is on the line. Dr. Feltham, he was chairman of the panel. So I'm going to call you now, Kevin. Over to you, Kevin.
Okay, thanks very much, Chairman. I'll give effectively they're just remarks, which that's obviously in addition to what you've obviously had in the report. The review panel was established in 2019 to consider the perceived gap in the relationship between local authority elected members and multi-academy trusts. Concerns had previously been raised around accountability, engagement and effectiveness of existing structures. During the review, we looked at the overall education landscape in Leicestershire, engagement with the local communities and the role of elected members in relation to multi-academy trusts. We also heard from 2 chief executive officers from trusts in Leicestershire, and these provide us with some examples of good practice. We recognise that the link between schools and the local authority is no longer as good as it once was, and the role of elected members as community champions is not necessarily fully understood. We therefore recommended that discussion should take place at the Academy Chief Executive Officer Network meeting to encourage visits to local schools for elected members to develop and maintain their local link. We also welcome the opportunity to promote a relationship between a school and its local community and recommended that multi-academy trusts be encouraged to appoint elected members to their local governing bodies. Just like to point out, I myself am still a governor at Robert Smythe Academy, which is a member of the Tudor Grange MAT, which is actually based in the West Midlands. But anyway, this allows better engagement between multi-academy trusts, elected members and the local authority. In order to assist with this, details of local elected members will be circulated to relevant schools to enable them to make contact should they wish to. At the end of the review, we felt that we'd better understood the role and remit of the local authority in relation to multi-academy trusts. We also feel reassured that more of a relationship is developing between multi-academy trusts and the local authority, and that the County Council is clear about its role in holding bodies to account. However, this is still a learning curve for all, and further work needs to take place to ensure members are aware of what they can raise, where they can raise all their concerns relating to multi-academy trusts. Finally, we feel reassured that the school effectiveness team here at County Hall are ensuring that the local authority link with multi-academy trusts is present and positive. We recommended that this committee receives an annual progress report from this team. I'd like to thank the officers who facilitated all the work of this panel. The Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee welcomed this report when we considered it at our meeting earlier this month. I therefore commend the report to you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I think it's a good piece of work from Scrutiny and a good example of scrutiny. I think it's a good idea that you're recommending that the Trust recognise local members, and it's also a good idea that an annual progress report from the school effectives team be given. So with that, Kevin, thanks again, and I'll move the recommendations on the Green Order paper, and they are A, B, C, D and E. Thank you.
Leader, I'm more than happy to second the motion on the Green Order paper. Some excellent recommendations by engaging elected members, upper-tier elected members like this will help community cohesiveness, and I therefore second the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. No other speakers. Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Moving on, agenda item 5, Children's Social Care Investment Plan, pages 27 to 36. This next report seeks our agreement for a new model of residential provision for children's care. The Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee received a report on the 3rd of March and supported the proposals. Jane Moore, Director of Children and Family Services, will take us through the report, and then Ivan Old, as the lead member, will speak. So, Jane, you're online, yeah?
Yep.
Over to you, Jane.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The purpose of this report is to seek the Cabinet's approval for a new model of residential provision for children's social care, which has been developed by the Council with its partner Barnardo's via the Children's Innovation Partnership. And the Cabinet is being asked to also approve the necessary funding for the development. So just by way of background, the number of looked after children has grown in recent years, and this trend is expected to continue. So by 2017, the County Council was accommodating 11.7% of these children in external residential placements, and was under increasing pressure to source good quality residential placements, particularly for children and young people with complex needs. And it was this that prompted the development of our care placement strategy and the recognition of the need for a whole system change. In 2018, the department entered into the Children's Innovation Partnership with Barnardo's, and it's through this the residential design brief was developed, and the proposals of which are the subject of this report. So the current 1920 Children's Social Care Placement budget stands at 30 million, and the current MTFS sees 4.25 million budget growth in this service area, growing to 13.6 million budget growth by 23-24. And in turn, the MTFS also has a savings requirement centred around the reduction in placement costs, totalling 1.5 million to be achieved by 2021, increasing to 3.6 million. And it's intended that the work undertaken around this residential design brief is to support the department to both reduce and stabilise placement growth, and to be in a much better position to achieve its required MTFS savings requirement. So this proposal's been developed to meet the requirements of the service and better improve outcomes for children and young people. And the idea is to do this through better needs-based commissioning, providing flexible beds within multifunctional properties, having better placements through the use of assessment beds, and better placement stability through the ART team, which I'll go on to describe further. So although these proposals aren't aimed at producing savings, it is anticipated that the growth can be reduced as a result of having more local provision. So following a period of comprehensive design work with Barnardo's, the proposed solution was developed that contains 3 elements which will be delivered in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the assessment and resource team, and phase 2 is a hub containing 3 assessment beds and 3 multifunctional properties. So in relation to the assessment and resource team, or ART, it will contain specialist roles who will work with young people in an outreach capacity. And these young people could be in residential care, they could be in foster placements, or indeed living at home. And the team will be able to work with up to 12 young people at any one time, and will be focused on the most vulnerable young people. As well as working with 12 young people in an outreach capacity, the ART will also be working with young people in the hub assessment beds. We currently have a multidisciplinary intervention support team in Leicestershire, MISL, which is provided through a contract with Action for Children, and it does offer similar provision to the proposed ART model. So the MISL project will therefore be decommissioned, and the children and young people currently supported within the MISL project will transfer to receiving ART support. And the County Council, Barnardo's and Action for Children are currently working together to consider the implications of this. So in phase 2, we're looking at developing 3 assessment beds, which will be used to work to contain the anxiety and distress that children exhibit at the point of family or placement breakdown. And these beds will be used for a period of assessment of need delivered by the ART team. And this assessment period will allow for a placement to be found for each young person based on a thorough assessment of their needs. Following that assessment period, the ART will then support each young person to transition into a new placement or indeed return home. The second element of the proposal is the development of multifunctional properties. The third element of this proposal. And we're looking to procure 3 buildings to be used as multifunctional properties for this purpose. One of these properties will be regulated to provide placements for children under 16, and the other 2 properties will be initially unregulated, meaning they're only able to offer placements for young people aged over 16. And it's proposed that after an interim period of 6 to 12 months, we then look at the demand and usage of both of those unregulated properties to see whether or not we need to change the kind of provision it's operating. So in relation to financial demand and modelling, we have done a number of financial and demand modelling exercises that have indicated that had this provision been made available in the financial year 1920, approximately £359,000 would have been saved against the initial investment. And we are proposing a 2.5 million capital investment to purchase and adapt, or if not possible, then design and build the 4 properties that I've just previously described. So as indicated, the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Commission did consider a report at its meeting on the 3rd of March and supported the proposals. So if I can just draw you to the recommendations. So it's recommended that the investment plan is approved, and that the 2.5 million capital investment be allocated to the Children's Social Care Investment Plan in order to purchase a hub and 3 multifunctional properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Ivan Old.
Thank you, Leader. To me, the key paragraphs in this report are 4 on page 28 and 21 on page 31. Jane has given you a very comprehensive explanation of the reasons behind the request to Cabinet. I would only add that recently her team had great difficulty in finding a suitable place for a young person, and they approached 90 different organisations. So MISL has gone, I think, as far as MISL can go. This proposal is the outcome of research work with Barnardo's and the Innovation Partnership. I can only recommend it to Cabinet.
And I agree with you, Ivan, so I'm happy to move the recommendations on the Green Order paper.
Leader, I'm happy to second.
Nothing further to add, have you, Ivan?
Leader, thank you.
Okay, all in favour? Everyone's in favour, Ivan. Thank you. Well done. Next agenda item is item 6. Environment and Transport 2021 Highways Cattle Programme and Highways and Transportation Work Programme. This is on pages 37 to 68. Report seeks approval. The report seeks approval for the Environment and Transport Plan 2021 and Highways Transportation Work Programme. Please note the Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee received a report on the 5th of March and supported the programme. Can we also note, please, we've got comments from Max Hunt, marked 6, which are attached to the order paper. Online, we have Anne Carruthers, Director of Environment and Transport, who will introduce the report. Are you online, Anne? Are you there, Anne? Are you there, Anne?
Good afternoon, Leader. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Anne. Over to you then.
Can you hear me? Thank you. This report presents a Highways Capital Programme for the next 4 years and the Highways Work Programme and seeks Cabinet approval for this. The overall Department Capital Programme for the NTFS 4-year period is 278 million, and the Highways and Transport element of that is 96% of it. It is a significant capital programme for us. The details of that are given in Appendix A of the report before you. The capital programme includes all our capital works, from major schemes to a smaller works programme for planned highway maintenance, and it's funded by a combination of sources including government grant, our own capital monies and developer contributions. Key elements for delivery in the coming financial year 2020-21 on major capital schemes are detailed in paragraph 21. Should be noted, however, that for the Lutterworth works that are set out there, we have heard that unfortunately we've been unsuccessful with our bid for HIF monies, and will now be reconsidering how we move forward with that project and seek alternative funding and potential other sources of funding for that. In addition, there is a report in relation to Melton Southern scheme later on the agenda at item 8. The Capital Works Programme for 2021 is set out in Appendix B, detailing our proposed programme of works for the year across the county, which gives members more detail of what will be delivered. This report has gone to the Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 5th of March, and their comments are included within the report before you. At this point, I would normally caveat by saying the delivery of the programme will be reviewed throughout the year according to more asset data we get. For instance, some schemes may be prioritised and accelerated, and some may be downgraded within the programme. However, I think what I need to highlight to members is because of our current situation with COVID-19, it's highly likely a lot of this programme will change throughout the year. It's likely we will need to cut back on some of our programme works to take staff off that to continue to deliver our critical services. And it could also mean some greater costs for some of our major capital projects as they take longer to deliver due to staff and material shortages. We're also likely to have to review our capital schemes for future years. We will, of course, update members as changes become necessary. In light of this, the revised recommendations reflect this possible need to change and amend our programme, and they are set out in the order paper at item 6. Thank you, Leader.
Blake.
Leader, I'm happy to move the recommendation on the Green Order paper. Can I say, as the former lead member for the department, how pleased I am with the department, not only for being ambitious, but for the hard work they're putting in putting this capital programme together, which, as I said, is ambitious. The director's just mentioned the impact and the consequences of this current crisis. She spoke about a £260 million programme where we really want to invest in Leicestershire. But in all reality, I think this crisis will look at the economics behind some of these programmes in due course, and may necessitate wider decisions further down the line. We'll wait and see. What is clear, though, it's ambitious, it's good for Leicestershire, and before the crisis I'd have made a very strong case to the government to increase the amount of revenue spend so we can invest in public transport and other revenue-oriented schemes as well. But as far as capital goes, I'm very happy to support this current programme, subject to the caveats put down in the motion on the Green Order paper. Happy to move, Leader.
I'm happy to second. Any further comments, Anne? Let's say no.
No, Leader.
Very good. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much, Anne. Agenda item 7 is the Hinckley Zone 4 Rugby and Town Centre improvements, pages 69 to 82. Appendices, pages 3 to 36. Over to you, Blake.
Agenda item 7 concerns the outcome of the consultation on the Hinckley Zone 4 Rugby Road and Town Centre improvements. The Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee received a report on the 5th of March and supported the proposals. We have received comments from Mr Stuart Bray, County Councillor, which are attached to this order paper marked 7A. We've also received comments from Mr David Bill, who's also submitted comments from district councillors, which are attached to the order paper marked 7B. These comments have been fed into the consideration process in finalising the scheme. Anne, over to you.
Thank you. As mentioned, this Cabinet report reports on the outcome of the consultation we held on the scheme and seeks approval to move forward on the scheme. The County Council has implemented Hinckley Area Project Zones 1 to 3 over the last few years, and this scheme will build on that and build on the outcomes of those projects. It will primarily seek to reduce congestion and improve connectivity in Hinckley Town Centre itself. The Rugby Road corridor, which it's looking at primarily, has been identified as a key corridor for congestion and is under stress, along with the Holly Road junction and the Brookside junctions particularly, which have poor safety records on that road. The scheme itself is about providing additional capacity and safety improvements at both those junctions, as well as including residents' parking scheme, which reflects town centre parking changes and changes in the pattern there, as well as walking, cycling and revised signing across the town. The scheme is funded from government's local pinch point funding. 3.5 million is coming from that, as well as 1.5 million coming jointly from ourselves and from developer contributions. We carried out public consultation in October to November last year. We had 181 responses, and Appendix D in your pack sets out the full consultation report and the responses to that. The main alterations we've made to the scheme as a result of the consultation feedback relate to the Holly Road junction and the design of that. It now avoids removing a number of trees. It does this by removing a footway immediately adjacent to the carriageway, and instead pedestrians and cyclists will be signed to use an adjacent service road. The other main change to the scheme relates to residents' parking, and it actually includes a far greater number of roads for a residents' parking scheme. These changes, however, if approved by Cabinet, the residents' parking scheme will still have to undergo a full public consultation on that. As been mentioned by Mr Payne, we have received a number of comments from Mr Bray and some Hinckley councillors and Mr Bill as well, and we have fed those into the consultation, are in the process of responding directly to all the points raised there. The recommendations as are item 7 on the order paper, and subject to approval and as well as the finalisation of the land negotiations, we'd anticipate construction would start this summer. Thank you, Leader.
Blake?
Leader, I'm very happy to move the motion on the Green Order paper, and can I just draw attention to the final sentence of the remarks sent in by Mr Bray, which expresses his thanks to the highways officers for the manner in which they've engaged with borough and county council members on this issue.
And I'll formally second the motion on the Green Order paper. Obviously, no other speakers. Nothing to add, Anne?
No, Leader, thank you.
Thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much, Anne. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, Melton Mowbray Distributor Road, pages 83 to 86. This report provides an update on the current position on delivery of the southern section of the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road. John Sinnott, Chief Executive, and Chris Tambini, Director of Corporate Resources, will explain. Then I'm going to call Byron Road. So, John, you first.
Thank you, Chairman. This report has two objectives. The first is to show the County Council's commitment to building the road, the northern and eastern legs, and the southern leg. In financial terms, I would draw attention to paragraph 43, where it says, the County Council's commitment to the road, and therefore to the development of the borough and the town of Melton Mowbray, currently stands at a total of nearly £30 million. The second objective is to point out with equal clarity the financial risk to the County Council of having to forward fund construction works and infrastructure such as schools, a very significant demand on the capital programme and likely to rise. Forward funding is required since it takes time for developer contributions, Section 106 allocations, to come through in line with homes being built and occupied in the two Melton sustainable neighbourhoods. In the case of the southern section of the road, there is a particular risk to the County Council. And so this report recognises that we need a framework which gives the assurance the County Council needs in order to commit to funding and accept a grant from the Housing Infrastructure Fund. That assurance can only come from a detailed plan, a master plan, which structures land use and development and timescales. Since unfortunately we do not have that from Melton Borough Council, the report includes a recommendation that the County Council offers to commission at its own expense that master planning work, and to do so as quickly as possible, with the outcome to be considered and approved by both the County Council and Melton Borough Council. Homes England is the relevant government body here, and they have been consulted and made aware of this report. The recommendations on the order paper include notifying the Department for Transport that the County Council is committed to progressing the northern and eastern legs of the road. And I would hand over to Chris at that stage.
Okay, thank you, John. Chris?
I'll just make some comments about the financial risk. As the report states, the risk really needs to be seen in the context of wider development across Leicestershire. We expect that housing growth in Leicestershire will put a requirement on the County Council to forward fund in the region of £600 million worth of new highways and new schools over the next 15 years. And we do need to make sure we've got the financial resilience so that we can actually do that. Because otherwise we run the risk of new communities not having the public services they need, or indeed the development not actually going ahead. The headline figures for the Melton Distributor Road are substantial. In total, the cost of the north, east and south sections are £160 million. And of that 160 million, 100 million is due to come from developer contributions. Hence the importance of doing everything we possibly can to make sure the planning works effectively and those contributions do come in. If not, we run the risk of the County Council actually picking up some of the shortfall. And to be frank, if that happens, there will be implications for development in other parts of the county. I'll just make a couple of comments about the risk about the southern HIF section, because it is greater than it is for the north and east. In terms of that section, we think the gross cost for schools and roads is going to be in the order of £70 million. And of that, only 20%, about 15 million, actually comes in from the HIF bid. So there's a particular risk around that section. Just adding to John's comments, it is possible to accept the bid, and you can see on the order page, I think recommendation E is the key recommendation.
Thank you, Chris. Byron, are you online?
Yes.
Over to you, Byron.
I think this is an enormous disappointment to me personally, because it's been the project which I've been championing now for more than 7 years, since I first introduced it when I was leader of Melton Borough Council and set things in motion. We reached the point tantalisingly close where it was capable of the whole thing being delivered, and now at this last moment we face this problem where the Borough Council have failed to produce the master plans which are so vital to underpin the financial arrangements. What's also extremely disappointing about the whole thing is the lack of understanding that I encounter, and others I think have encountered, when dealing with Melton Borough Council these days, both at member and officer level, as to what the financial risks are, in particular what the County Council is having to do to play its part in delivering not just the road but all the infrastructure for their local plan. With a heavy heart, I have to say that I agree totally with what the Chief Executive has said and what the Director has just said, and I have to say that we have no alternative but to go ahead and approve the recommendations in this paper.
I agree entirely with you, Byron. There's nothing much more can be said. The recommendations are self-explanatory. Let's just hope we get the master plan, then we can go ahead. So I will formally move the motion on the Green Order paper.
Leader, I'll formally second and just reiterate the County Council has already put £5 million into the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road. We've allocated £16 million towards the construction of the northern and eastern legs, and we're prepared to allocate another £13 million towards the construction of the southern leg. These master plans, these documents exist for a reason. We're dealing with some very economically unstable times. I've already spoken about the capital programme that the Highways Department have. It's essential that we have the proper plans in place to assure the County Council that the finances will be in place, whether it's through Section 106 monies or other types of grants, to be able to deliver this infrastructure. And for that reason, I will fully support the motion on the Green Order paper and formally second. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, formally been moved and seconded. All those capable of voting in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item 9, more Melton Mowbray. This is the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road, making of the compulsory purchase order and side roads order for land required. This is on pages 87 to 96 and appendices pages 37 to 72. It seeks our approval to secure the compulsory acquisition of land for the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road. And I'm going to call Anne first. Are you online, Anne?
Yes, I am.
Over to you, Anne.
To progress with the compulsory purchase order and the side road orders for the Melton Distributor Road, the northern and eastern sections. That's as per the plans in the appendices A and B of your packs. Throughout the development work for this scheme, we've been negotiating with landowners to acquire the necessary land. However, we still require the parallel process of compulsory purchase order to continue in case those negotiations are unfortunately can't conclude successfully. The total area we require in relation to this scheme, the northern and eastern section of the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road, is 137 hectares. The side road orders, they enable us to deal with all the rights of way, the accesses, the roads that interact with the new road that we're constructing by diverting, stopping up or constructing new or improving existing highways. That allows us to do that at the same time we're constructing the road. It gives us the powers to do that. The latest cost estimate for the scheme is 70.3 million, which includes a 10% contingency. This represents 15.7 million exposure for the County Council, which is 1.7 million more than had been anticipated when we were at the outline business case stage bidding for the money from Department for Transport. It's expected this exposure will be recouped in future via developer contributions. We are carrying out at the moment over the next month a full construction cost review by the contractor, and we're also ensuring that there's rigorous value engineering of the actual project to identify any savings wherever we can to make sure we reduce the cost as much as possible. In terms of the timetable for the scheme, it's anticipated that the compulsory purchase order and the side road order processes, including a public inquiry, if we need to go through that, can be completed by spring next year. And we're also anticipating the full business case for the scheme to be signed off by DFT at around the same time. Subject to that, construction would start summer 21 with completion autumn 23. The recommendations are as per item 9 in the order paper, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Byron, I understand you want to speak. Are you online?
Yes, I am.
Over to you.
I want to say how pleased I am that you and colleagues have agreed to continue with this aspect of the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road work, which is in the north and eastern section, and that this paper then authorises the next stage in that work, which is to acquire the land. The County Council will make a considerable financial commitment by buying this land and then taking it forward to the next stage. And I think that demonstrates just how committed the County Council is to development in Melton as a whole, even though it can't at this stage go ahead with the rest of the projects in the south. So I'm very pleased with the report, and I hope that you will approve it.
Thank you, Byron. I mean, hopefully we get a master plan for the south and we can deliver the south as well. I'll formally move the motion on the Green Order paper and call Blake Payne.
Happy to formally second the motion on the Green Order paper under 9. Thank you.
Okay, got 3 people to vote. All in favour? Thank you. It's approved for you, Byron. Okay, moving on now to agenda item 10, which is the Midlands Engine Development Corporation proposals. These are on pages 97 to 104. It's about the Midlands Engine Development Corporation seeks approval for the council's involvement in the next steps in development of the proposals. I understand we've got Tom Pennell, Assistant Chief Executive, on the line. Are you there, Tom?
Yes, I am, Leader.
Okay, over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as you say, the report seeks support for the council's involvement in the development of a development corporation, and also seeks support for the submission of a response to the government's consultation on free ports. The ambition of Project Alchemy, which is the title that's been given to the development corporation project, is to develop a model for a development corporation for 3 separate but connected sites in the East Midlands, including Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station, which is going to be decommissioned, the proposed HS2 hub at Toton, and the nearby Chetwynd Barracks site in Nottinghamshire, and at East Midlands Airport and land around it. Ambitious outputs for the 3 sites include a minimum of 4,500 homes, 40,000 jobs, with an additional 84,000 jobs across the wider region, 1 million tonnes of freight handled at East Midlands Airport each year, a green corridor connecting the 3 areas, and 4.8 billion GVA growth per annum for the region. So a significant project. In addition to work on developing the development corporation, the government last summer announced a consultation looking at the creation of new free ports. These are intended to boost international trade and economic growth after Brexit, and I think will be needed even more after the current coronavirus incident. Government's ambition is that free ports will enhance trade and investment across the UK, boost growth and high-skilled jobs, and increase innovation. The free port consultation, it seeks views on a range of issues, including customs, tax, planning and regeneration policies. The Project Alchemy Oversight Board, chaired by Sir John Pease, so that's the board that's looking at the Development Corporation, has been asked to coordinate a response to the Freeport consultation on behalf of the East Midlands, and is also developing a summary business case for the Development Corporation proposals. A further report along with the summary business case will be brought to Cabinet before the formal submission of the business case, and that's anticipated later in the spring. The recommendations are as set out on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Tom. This is very exciting for Leicestershire and East Midlands Airport in particular. If we can get the free ports up there, it'll be fantastic. I'm happy to just go ahead and move the motion on the Green Order paper. Blake?
Yeah, happy to formally second to. This all plays a role in the levelling up agenda that the government have already identified. As the Assistant Chief Executive, Tom, has just said post-corona, COVID-19, this becomes even more important. We stand ready to play our part in building the national economy back up through organisations such as the Midlands Engine Development Corporation. I'll formally second, Leader.
Very good, Tom. Blake, all in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Next report 11 is the Tree Management Strategy, pages 105 to 172. Seeks our approval for the strategy. Environment and Transport Overview Scrutiny Committee received a report on the 16th of January and will receive an annual report on progress. Note we've got comments again from Max Hunt, marked 11, which are attached to the Green Order paper. Roderick O'Connor, the Assistant Director for Commercial and Customer Services, will present the report, and Nick Fell may be online as well, who will join him. I'll then call Blake as the Cabinet Lead Member to speak. So are you there, Roderick?
I am, Chair. Good afternoon.
Over to you.
Thank you very much. Page 1 sets out the purpose of the report, which on the recommendations, and the purpose, as you mentioned, is to seek Cabinet approval for the tree management strategy. The original draft came to November Cabinet and then went to Environment and Transport Scrutiny Commission on January the 16th. On the second page, if I just set out the context of this here, The County Council's strategic plan recognises the importance of the natural environment, and the tree management strategy is effectively a leg of the Council's environment strategy and complements energy and carbon reduction plans. And set within this context, the principle is fundamentally to utilise the County Council's tree assets to improve the quality of life. Resource implications, the money has already been set aside of £400,000 in the medium-term financial strategy to support the response to ash dieback and the broader forestry programme. If I turn over to Part B, again, just a reiteration of the context and background, and if I can best summarise this, I think the report effectively sets out a proposed governance framework within which the County Council can discharge its obligations to safeguard the trees under its stewardship. I think the secondary aspect supporting the broader strategic priorities is that the County Council has a wider responsibility to provide leadership in tackling climate change, mitigate against the social, economic and environmental problems that are exacerbated by it. And our proposal is that we actually move forward with partners and specifically with the National Forest Company to actually set out our joint ambition to provide leadership across the place and to have a framework for future work, working with partnerships influencing landowners and others. We went to Environment and Scrutiny in January the 16th, as I mentioned, and the comments of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee are outlined, and hopefully we have addressed all of those and amended them within the document. At this point, I'll actually hand over to Nick, but before I do that, just the third point was that we then have a tree planting plan, which will be a living document. The strategy is set out over 4 years, and my expectation is that we review this on an ongoing basis and review the strategy annually. Nick?
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you, Roderick. If I could just elaborate a little bit on the tree planting targets that we've set out in our action plan that goes with the strategy. We're looking to significantly increase our planting programme to provide assistance for private landowners. So we currently run a number of schemes, all of which is supported by the Woodland Trust. And our key scheme is a free tree scheme where our target numbers for this year were 400. We've actually achieved nearly double that this year, which is very encouraging, and it shows that many landowners are very keen to assist us and utilise our schemes to help the tree planting programme. But we're looking to increase that significantly next year to provide further incentives for private landowners. But we're also looking to maintain and increase our planting on highway verges. We're looking at country park sites where we can significantly increase tree planting and on our county farm land holdings as well. We have one particular scheme in the National Forest where we're talking with the tenant, but they're also we've asked for expressions of interest from tenants, and we have at least 10 sites to look at across the county where we can significantly increase tree planting. So that is very encouraging. A lot of areas that we can target and significantly increase our planting programme. If I may, Chair, I believe Mr Hunt made a comment regarding the benefit of trees to sequester carbon and also to help with flood attenuation and pollution control. This is something we have addressed in the strategy on page 15. We've elaborated the wording and covered those areas, but we can also further expand on that and particularly firm that up in the action plan, so the benefits of tree planting against those particular criteria can be identified.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Roderick. Before I call Blake, I think I might have Byron want to speak. Do you still want to speak, Byron?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to say, really, I congratulate Roderick and Nick on putting together this report. I had the pleasure of reading this yesterday afternoon, the whole thing, and it's quite an inspiring report. and especially at the troubled times we have at the moment, to read something which is looking ahead not just to next year but for many years into the future, that's quite encouraging. But more to the point, I think it's a deliverable plan, and I think that's exactly what we want to be seeing. And of course, there is now a clear way forward to deal with this big setback we're going to get with the ash dieback and the replacement of the trees which will have to follow, and then the further expansion of our tree cover in the county. So I'm very, very strongly in favour of the recommendations.
Super. Blake?
Leader, I'll formally move the motion on the Green Order paper. Can I just echo the comments from Byron Rhodes, Lead Member for Corporate Resources? And in his role as the Lead Member for Corporate Resources, Byron has never shirked away from trying to find the money we need to advance our environment strategy and our ambitious agenda around carbon neutrality. And this report, which the foreword is written by Byron, is a part of that journey. Trees play a hugely important role in carbon absorption, and what I'm particularly pleased about is this is the Leicestershire County Council putting our money where our mouth is, leading on this agenda, in my opinion, at a local level. It's a very ambitious plan. We have about 360,000 current trees that we're responsible for managing. There are over, I think, 420,000 trees that adjoin the public highway that are on private land that we have to monitor. And this strategy plans to plant many, many more trees in Leicestershire, which is not only welcome, but will help us hugely in achieving our objectives. I have no problem whatsoever in supporting this agenda and formally moving the item on the Green Order paper. Thank you, Leader.
Great. Lee?
Thank you, Chair. It was good to see the comments from the Environment and Transport Overview Scrutiny Committee, the work that they've done on this and the comments they've made. I was pleased to see the carbon capture within the strategy as well, the information there, so more than happy to second the recommendations on the Green Order paper.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favour? Thank you very much. Agenda Okay, thanks. Agenda item 12, Draft Leicestershire Sexual Health Strategy 2020 to 2023. This is on pages 173 to 196. It seeks our approval to consult on the strategy. Mike Sands, Director of Public Health, and Claire Laurent, Consultant in Public Health, will present the report, and then Lee will speak. So, can you confirm you're online, Mike?
Yes,
okay, and then you'll introduce Claire afterwards, yeah? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, the purpose of this report is to seek approval for our draft Leicestershire Sexual Health Strategy 2020 to 2023. Today would have been an ideal time for you to meet Claire, who's joined us as locum consultant covering for Viv Robbins, who's currently on maternity leave, but she's going to come to you today via a disembodied voice of the internet. So I'll hand over to Claire to summarise the report.
Thank you very much indeed. The 2020-2023 Sexual Health Strategy, it builds on the good work that was done by the previous Sexual Health Strategy, which brought together a sort of a fragmented system into a single service. This new strategy will focus on sexual health improvement, on leadership and policy in Leicestershire. To allow for further progress to be made in those areas, and it recognises the changing commissioning landscape, development of the integrated care system and its impact on partners. Just a little bit of background. Under the 2012 Health and Social Care Act, local authorities have a statutory responsibility for commissioning almost all sexual health services for local populations. And the strategy is based on evidence from the JSNA chapter on sexual health. And just to give a little bit of detail, not too much on that, in Leicestershire, sexual health mirrors the trends that are going on nationally, but generally almost all rates are at a lower level. So things like sexually transmitted infections, the rates for syphilis are increasing nationally, and they are increasing also in Leicestershire, but at a lower rate. And the same for some of the other issues, such as HIV. The diagnosed prevalence rate for HIV is lower nationally and lower in Leicestershire compared to nationally. Late diagnosis is a key factor in HIV, which we want to address through this strategy over the next 3 years. Nationally and locally, the burden of STIs continues to be greatest in young people, so this strategy will focus on work there. It continues to be greatest in men who have sex with men and specific black and minority ethnic groups. So this strategy will look at some of the health inequalities that affect those groups of people. The government has indicated that local authorities are to commission the provision of pre-exposure prophylactic, known as PrEP, for prevention of HIV infection. This is originally going to be from April, but we think because of the COVID-19 situation, that's going to be delayed to later in the year. And we have set aside some funding for this, and the NHS is paying for the medication. Other key issues in sexual health include termination of pregnancy. The total abortion rate in Leicestershire has increased significantly over the past 6 years, which reflects the national pattern, but is still at a lower rate than the national rate. And teenage pregnancy has been the reduction in this has been a huge success over the last 20 years. The rate in Leicestershire has decreased for this age group to 67.6% rate by 67.6%, and England has achieved a 61.8% reduction. Sexual and reproductive health is not just about preventing disease or infection. It also means promoting good sexual health in a wider context, including relationships, sexuality, and sexual rights. And so, in a way, this strategy is about that very positive approach, building on those things. And the key priorities are, there's 5 key priorities which are set out in the strategy. They're about informed positive choice, which fits with the wellbeing and opportunity focus of the Council's strategic plan, and includes things about making sure the population is informed and empowered and can make positive choices. It's about delivering high quality, effective relationship and sexual education in schools, which will be statutory from September, and having a skilled and flexible sexual and reproductive health workforce. And to have that will help having a flexible and accessible service. So significant work is being completed to improve services, and we'll continue to make sure that they're accessible for the population, and we're especially doing some work on that at the moment given the current situation. Other areas include fulfilling reproductive intentions, which really is about sort of managing unplanned pregnancies, preventing those, and supporting people to make decisions to have children if they wish to, at a time and a place that's right in their lives. And it's about reducing health inequalities. So that's another of the key priorities, and reducing the impact of those health inequalities on those particular groups which I mentioned earlier, those vulnerable groups or those who are most at risk. And above all, it's about maintaining this strategic partnership approach that has been built so strongly over the last 3 years of the strategy, working with our partners and sexual health commissioners to develop a service that's for everybody in the population. We want to go out to consultation on this to hear what our key stakeholders think. It is obviously a difficult time to be doing that, but we think that we will reach our stakeholders through a digital approach, and that will include via the website, it'll be on the council website. We'll do an online survey, an online forum, and we'll contact people through email as well, and we think that we will get responses back on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And just to note that the recommendations on the order paper do take account of both A, the need to switch to digital-only methods for the consultation, and B, that if operational pressures due to COVID become even more all-consuming, then we may have to push the consultation back a bit.
No problem. No problem with that, Mike. Okay, Lee, please.
Thank you, Leader. A couple of points. Priorities align with the County Council's strategic plan 2018 to 22. Which aims to be working together for the benefit of everyone. So that's one good point to note. Secondly, the only other one I'd raise, no immediate resource implications. And obviously this comes from the budget, which is 3.3 million from the Public Health Grant. Can I thank Claire and Mike for the report and the strategies that we have here today. The Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee were very supportive of the strategy that we have here, so I'm happy to move the recommendations on the Green Order paper. And I note obviously what Mike has said regarding the addition of the recommendation that covers the potential of the coronavirus and the delays that that may have and the implications on the consultation.
Very good. Blake?
Yes, very important report. This very important strategy. It should be sent for consultation as soon as possible, but we understand the issues with that at the moment. Fully support the recommendations and look forward to seeing what the consultation tells us and the feedback from that.
Okay, moved by Lee, seconded by Blake. All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 13, re-establishment of a partnership agreement with East Leicestershire and Rutland and West Leicestershire clinical commissioning groups for lead commissioning arrangements and a pooled budget for services for people with learning disability. This is on pages 197 to 202. It seeks permission to establish this partnership agreement. Hopefully we've got John Wilson, Director of Adults and Communities online, who will present the report, and then I'll be calling Lee because he has responsibility. Are you there, John?
I am, Leader.
Okay, over to you, John.
Thank you. In September 2013, the Cabinet first approved the County Council entering into a partnership agreement under Section 75 of the NHS Act 2006 with the two clinical commissioning groups covering Leicestershire, allowing the County Council to become lead commissioner and manager of the learning disability pool budget. This agreement has now expired and therefore a further agreement is required. As of 20th of February 2020, the current learning disability pool budget is arranging and paying for health and care support to 200 people with a learning disability, with a total pool budget of 14.7 million. The proposed scope of the new learning disability pool budget is for those people with a learning disability whose care and support is jointly funded between the County Council and the two clinical commissioning groups, although the new budget will not cover people who are entirely 100% funded through either continuing healthcare or the County Council. The partnership agreement will run for 4 years, from April 2020 through to March 2024, with an option to extend for a further 2 years. However, and subject to agreement with the CCGs, provision to implement a financial risk share at a later date will be included within the partnership agreement, together with the option to incorporate funding under Section 117 of the Mental Health Act. The purpose of the agreement is to jointly commission health and care services for people with learning disabilities. This could include how the County Council and the CCGs better manage the support arrangements, with the County Council providing additional case management activity for which a further funding allocation would be put within the agreement. Entering into a partnership agreement with the CCGs will both strengthen the working relationship between our respective organisations and improve outcomes for people with a learning disability through better integrated health and social care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Lee?
Thank you, Leader. This was originally a 4-year agreement. It was then extended by 2 years by virtue, so this really gives us another 4 years to move a good partnership agreement between the various parties, and I think I'm happy to propose the recommendations on the Green Order paper so the vital work that this agreement will bring can continue. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Blake?
Yeah, very happy to second the motion, Leader.
Moved and seconded. All in favour? Thank you. 14, extension to contract procedure rules in relation to the Trees Hinkley urgent action taken by the Chief Executive, 203 to 206. It confirms the urgent action to enable the direct award of a construction contract to Tanwood Construction Limited in relation to the Trees Hinkley. I'll formally move the motion on the order paper.
I'll formally second.
All in favour? Thank you. 15, another quick one. Review of delegations to chief officers, pages 207 to 230. Seeks our approval of changes made to a number of delegations granted to head of departments following review of all chief officer delegations. I'll move them.
Second, Leader.
All in favour? Thank you very much. 16, items referred from overview scrutiny, none. Urgent items, we now move to the urgent reports. Our first being the South West Leicestershire Growth Area Housing Infrastructure Fund, better known as HIF, which advises of the outcome of the HIF bid and the implications of this. John Bennett, who should be online, will present the report. So, you online, John?
Yes, I'm here.
Over to you, John.
Thank you very much. I'd like to update the Cabinet with regard to the recent Housing Infrastructure Fund bid for the South West Leicestershire growth area. Unfortunately, the bid for a total of £50 million for the infrastructure funding, which was there to unlock up to 7,250 homes, was unsuccessful. So Cabinet is advised that the strategy is still to proceed with the Lutterworth East scheme to Planning Committee at Harborough District Council, currently planned for the 21st of April, and then during that time to engage further with Homes England and the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Government about alternative fund monies to help with the Spine Road cost. With regard to M69 Junction 2, any improvements now will be brought about either by new sources of government funding, again Homes England and MHCLG, and developer contributions via Section 106s. No doubt the dates will slide during the COVID virus isolation period, but we still intend to use this time wisely to reflect on the best delivery methods for both of these important schemes, whether it's joint venture or by other routes. Delays to planning decisions at Lutterworth East and possibly to the Blaby local plan are possible, but again these can be managed. And Cabinet is just asked to note the recommendations on the front of the report. Thank you.
Good. That's simple. I'll move the motion on the Green Order paper.
Noted. I'll second, Chairman.
All in favour? Thank you, John. We now move to the second urgent report, one which sets out details of the impact of coronavirus and the response of the County Council. Tom Pennell, the Assistant Chief Executive, and Mike Sands, Director of Public Health, were to present the report. But before we call you two guys, can I formally place on record Cabinet's appreciation of the members of staff who are working in these difficult times, whether here in the building for us or at home. So please convey my thanks to them. My own members have contacted me as well and asked me to thank them on their behalf. I've also been contacted by Simon Galton, Leader of the Opposition, to thank the staff, and of course by Dr Terry Einon, Leader of the Labour Group, who has also expressed her thanks. So with those things on record, are you there, Tom?
Yes, I am, Leader.
Okay, Tom, you're first.
Thank you. And as well as myself and Mike, Lauren Haslam will say a little bit about the section on decision making and meetings, which is a little bit later. The Cabinet report was published yesterday, but clearly there have been some significant developments since then, and work is underway to respond to the implications of the PM's announcement last night. The report does three things. It provides an update on the current position, well, the current position as it was yesterday when the report was finalised, including the impact of the virus, which Mike will cover in a moment, and the response of the Council and of the Council working in partnership with others. It also sets out the process for taking urgent decisions, which, as I mentioned, Lauren will cover, and it recommends the establishment of a fund to set up a voluntary community sector support scheme. At this point, I'll hand over to Mike to provide an update on the virus and its impacts.
Yes, thank you, Tom. So paragraphs 4 to 9 set out the background to coronavirus. I don't intend to spend much time on that because I think that's well known to people, only to recognise that in paragraph 5, in terms of the phases of COVID-19, we are now firmly into the delay phase, and the actions taken by the government are designed to lower the peak impact and pushed away from the winter season when the NHS is under most pressure. I would draw your attention to paragraph 10 and 11, which lists the cases we've had in this country and locally. I've said in various meetings over the last couple of weeks that about 10 days ago PHE suspended large-scale community testing, and they're prioritising testing based on clinical need, or if there are cases in high-risk settings such as prisons or care homes. So the numbers published in paragraph 11 are no more than a sample, a snapshot, if you will, of the number of cases that are out there. But it is interesting to reflect that we had our first case over the weekend of the 7th and 8th of March. By the end of that weekend, we had 2 cases. By the end of the first week, we had 5. By the end of the second week, we had about 18 to 20 cases. And then over the last 4 or 5 days, that's grown to what is now 53 confirmed cases as of yesterday. So I think it just helps show the scale and the rapid pace at which numbers locally are growing in line with what we've seen nationally. Thank you, Tom.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mike. Actually, Leader, I was going to come back in and say a little bit more before handing over to
Sure,
Lauren.
go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Thanks, yes. An important part of the Council's response is working in partnership with others, and the Council is a member of the Local Resilience Forum for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, also known as LLR Prepared. The LRF has put in place a response structure for this incident, and you can see that in the diagram at the end of paragraph 13. The strategic coordinating group, which is overseeing the response, is currently chaired by Mike Sands, but it is expected that a major incident will be declared by the LRF shortly. Major incidents have been declared in other parts of the country, and when that happens, chairmanship will transfer to the police. The diagram shows that planning work is underway across a wide range of issues, including planning for increased mortality, health and social care issues, support for self-isolating and vulnerable people, and impacts on the economy. The County Council response is summarised from paragraph 16. A crisis management group, including the Chief Executive and all directors, is meeting on a daily basis to manage the response. Paragraph 17 to 52 include a lot of detail on service impacts and responses. So I'll just pick out a few of the key issues there rather than go through that in detail. On staffing, the Council has actively encouraged working from home, and staff who can are doing so. Specific support being provided to staff with underlying conditions. There have been regular and well-received staff bulletins. Business continuity plans across the Council have been updated in the context of this incident, and that's led to an updating of the Council's list of critical services. Those are being prioritised, and plans are being made to redeploy staff from non-essential functions to support those critical services. And in support of that, IT equipment is being redeployed and procured. The Council is supporting implementation of the government's request that parents keep their children at home and that only children of key workers and vulnerable children attend school, and has also developed robust plans for services that safeguard children and provide support to children with complex needs. Continuing provision of effective adult social care is a key priority, and paragraphs 33 to 34 set out in detail the measures being taken, and that includes steps related to provider capacity and workforce issues, the flow of work through the care system, the shielding of vulnerable people in support of the government's recent announcement, and funding matters. On transport matters, non-critical highways operations have been scaled back to enable a focus on more critical services, and there's also a focus on ensuring that transport is provided for those children still attending school, and that's obviously in its early stages, and some challenging issues there. Paragraphs 48 to 52 summarise the position with service closures, with paragraph 48 saying that a verbal update on closures will be provided at the meeting. The current position is that all adult learning courses have been cancelled. Adult day services have been closed until further notice. Children's and family wellbeing centres have been closed to the public. All country parks have been closed until further notice, and the Beacon Hill Cafe is also closed. All scheduled Find Out About Fostering and Find Out About Adoption events have been cancelled until further notice. All Leicestershire libraries are currently closed, and all events and activities usually held at libraries have been cancelled, and mobile libraries won't be operating until further notice. All of our museums and heritage sites are closed until further notice, as are the Record Office, Bow Manor Hall and Century Theatre. All 14 recycling and household waste sites are being closed, and weddings have been cancelled for the next 3 weeks, and the position on those will be reviewed as we get towards the end of that period. So that's the current position. I'll just hand over now to Lauren to talk about the section on decision making and meetings, and then Lauren will hand back to me just to give a very quick update on the financial impact for the council.
Yeah, Tom. When you come back, would you be able to tell us, because members of the public who've approached me are confused about the Leicestershire Local Resilience Forum and they think it's just us. Would you be able to, for the record, read out who's a member of the Leicestershire Local Resilience Forum after Lauren has spoken? Have you got that information to hand?
I can find it while Lauren's talking.
Okay, thank you. Lauren?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, paragraphs 53 to 60 of the report sets out the current minimum requirements to convene a lawful meeting of the Council. Deriving as it does from legislation passed in the 70s, as you'll appreciate, it doesn't allow for virtual meetings. I'm pleased to report that revisions have been made and published today to the emergency coronavirus bill currently before Parliament's being in the House of Lords today for reading, with a view to being passed by the end of the week. And those revisions allow the Secretary of State to make regulations to deal with local authority meetings so that they can take place virtually. The regulations will include provisions covering the requirement to hold meetings, the frequency and period within which meetings have to be held, where and how people attend the meetings and vote, and the public admission to meetings, all designed to allow the local authority to hold virtual meetings during the period of the current crisis. The regulations will apply to all councils, the Fire and Rescue Authority, and to school appeal panels. And naturally, as you'd expect, we'll be monitoring the progress of the bill and will update members as the bill is enacted. At the same time, it's important that the Council looks at its current constitution to ensure resilience in decision-making. Paragraph 58 of your report sets out the powers currently vested in the Chief Executive to act in the case of urgency in consultation with members as set out. We'll be looking at that delegation to ensure that there is appropriate resilience in relation to that power in case the Chief Executive is unavailable to exercise the urgency powers. Happy to take any questions or hand back to Tom if that's all clear.
Yeah, I hope I've not put you on the spot, Tom, but people think the Leicestershire Local Resilience Forum is something that only we do. I know we're a key member of it, but I was just wondering if you could read into the record who's actually part of it.
Yes, I certainly can. So the makeup, if you like, of the forum is set out in the Civil Contingencies Act, and it divides organisations into two categories. So the core organisations are what are known as Category 1 responders, and those include the Leicestershire Police, the Fire and Rescue Service, the Ambulance Service, University Hospitals of Leicester NH Trust, the Leicestershire Partnership NH Trust, Public Health England, NHS England, the Environment Agency, British Transport Police, and all local authorities, so the City, Rutland, the County Council and the 7 district councils. Category 2 responders who are part of the partnership are cooperating bodies that are less likely to be involved in core planning work but may be heavily involved in certain incidents. So that includes East Midlands Airport, the Health and Safety Executive, transport bodies like Highways Agency, Network Rail, etc., and the utilities companies. There are some other key partners which include the Met Office, Animal and Plant Health Agency and the military. And then there are, I won't run through the list, but there are sort of 8 or 9 voluntary sector partners which include voluntary organisations and charities. So obviously quite an extensive membership, and I can say from my own experience that pretty much all of those organisations are very actively involved.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Tom. It's just that people have the impression that it's ours, whereas it isn't. We're a key partner, but as you can hear from your people who are on it, there's a lot. So I'll move the motion on the... sorry. Oh, sorry. I've missed it. Okay. Yeah, sorry, Tom, I missed it.
That's okay. From paragraph 63, so as it says there, the impact is expected to be very substantial. There'll be a negative impact on income, savings, expenditure and project costs where delays are expected, and those are usually costly. The government has allocated additional funding, £500 million nationally for a hardship fund for individuals. We're awaiting details of that, and £1.6 billion for social care and other services, although it's been acknowledged by the government that more will be needed. Funding's also been provided for businesses, likely to be about £3 billion, we think, for companies in Leicestershire as part of the £350 billion nationally. The government hasn't as yet, though, provided significant additional funding for the voluntary and community sector, which as a sector is coming under severe pressure. Demand for its services is rising. Many of its volunteers are having to self-isolate, and donations and other fundraising efforts have been impacted negatively. So it's therefore recommended to help plug that gap that a £1 million fund be established to support the sector. The final two paragraphs note that the council finances are in a reasonable position as we go into this incident, but that they will come under pressure, and that there will be a need for quick decisions to address the impacts of the virus, and where those have a significant financial impact, they will be agreed with the Section 151 officer. The recommendations are as on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Tom. Sorry I missed you before. I mean, it's troubling times, but I'm proud to be moving the recommendations and proud to be moving the £1 million fund for small third sector ventures, businesses, charities, anybody who's small and suffering from lack of small amounts of money should write in, and we'll see if we can help them, and we'll seek to help them as quickly as we can. So I know some are suffering. They've had to shut down little cafes and things where they've generated money to stay afloat. Well, we don't want to lose them just for the sake of a couple of £300 or a couple of £3,000. So it's really good that we can do this. So can I call? I'm moving the motion, and then I'm calling Blake. No, sorry, I'm not calling Blake. I'm calling the only other person I can call, Lee.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just put on record, as lead member of Health, my thanks to Mike Sands and his public health team. I think also John Sinnott as Chief Executive here and all the officers for what has been diligent and tireless work in getting to grips with the COVID-19 outbreak and all of its implications for the residents of Leicestershire. And I agree with yourself, Leader, this fund will provide invaluable in supporting so many good groups within our communities.
Very good, thanks for that, Lee. Blake, you wanted to speak as well?
Yeah, I just want to, again, on a personal level, put on record my thanks to Mike Sandys, the Chief Executive, and all the staff that are so admirably engaged on this issue. I'm receiving messages from community organisations and parishes in my patch, and they're doing an amazing job mobilising local volunteers to try and help in this situation. And I know the directives coming down from central government are ambiguous, and it's a credit to our staff who get the guidance and seek to interpret those directives, that I'm pushing these questions that are being posed at me to the officers, who in turn are sending them up to the local resilience forum that we've just spoken about to get more clarity about. But having said that, it's a pleasure to see that we've thought about the community groups and the community and voluntary sector in particular in Leicestershire, where you've come up with a £1 million package to try and support those groups. And again, I'd like to encourage any bodies out there in Leicestershire to write to leader@leics.gov.uk with any proposals they have to access that fund. In the meantime, the only thing I'd like to say is please stay at home. We're putting immense pressure on the emergency services, particularly the National Health Service and the Public Health Department here at present. And the best thing we can do as citizens, as members of public in Leicestershire, is to simply stay at home and heed the advice of government and the bodies that are looking after us. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, while we're thanking people, let's thank the unthanked, which is the accountants, Chris and your department. Thanks to you, and also to Lauren and the lawyers upstairs as well. Not very often thanked, but very important work done. So, moved by me, seconded by Lee. All in favour? Great. Okay, final one. Well, not final one. Exclusion of press and public. So thanks everybody for attending who's a member of the public. Our last item on the agenda is the exempt report regarding the M69 Junction 2 Strategic Development Area. I now move that under Section 108 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded for the following items of business on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 and 10 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that in all circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. I formally move.
I formally second, Leader.
Thank you. All in favour? Okay, so that's it. Anybody who's online who's not a member of Cabinet, you now need to